Otherwise, across other parts of the country, largely dry. Quite a bit of cloud coming in from the west, but some clear skies towards eastern parts in particular. And that cloud will do two things. Could bring some hill fog to parts of the south, and also it means our temperatures aren't going to drop. So it is going to be a mild and blustery start to the day for some of us tomorrow. As we go through tomorrow morning, then yes, quite a dry start across many parts of central southern England and Wales. A few spots of rain where the clouds thick enough, and like I said, could be a bit murky. Some hill fog to watch out for too. Further north, across Northern Ireland and many parts of Scotland, outbreaks of rain already pushing their way through as we go through tomorrow morning. None of it looks particularly heavy at this point, but the rain is going to become a bit more persistent, a bit heavier as we go through the day. So we could see some spray on the roads and other travel disruption is possible. As well as the rain coming through, the winds will be strengthening as we go through the day. Risk of gales around coastal parts and towards the northwest. All the time towards the southeast, staying drier and some glimmers of sunshine as well. Temperatures above average for the time of year, most places getting into double figures, so feeling pretty mild. That rain eventually pushes through overnight into Wednesday, and then Wednesday we have a bit of a cloudy, at times damp story across much of England and Wales. A bit brighter for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but plenty of blustery showers pushing their way through. Some further wet weather to come at times as we go through Thursday and Friday, but also some sunshine. Notice, however, our temperatures are going to markedly drop. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. The M53 in Cheshire is partly blocked northbound at junction 9, the Ellesmere Port turn off at the scene of an accident involving a couple of lorries leaving lengthy tailbacks on the approach. Meanwhile, on the M60 in Greater Manchester, everyone's been funneled into the outside lane clockwise past the scene of a lorry that's broken down just after the M61 and the Swinton interchange. Still really slow on the M5 heading south through the West Midlands. The lane is closed on the exit slip at junction 3, the Hales Owen and Birmingham exit, following a collision. On the M1 in Northamptonshire, the northbound entry slip road is closed just after 16 at Daventry. Emergency repair works are underway after a lorry caught fire in the roadworks. The Essex stretch of the M25 still really slow. Anti-clockwise, the motorway was closed for quite some time at the A12, but all restrictions have been lifted. An Operation Brock-in on the M20 coastbound in Kent from junction 8 to 9 towards Ashford, and that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good evening to you. At 7 p.m, I'm Martin Daubney, standing in for the big man, Nigel Farage. On Farage tonight, on tonight's show, and the new devolution of power rules. Is the Labour Party about to cancel a raft of council elections in May? Pundits have predicted that the Labour Party will get a hammering and reform would clean up. Is this a cynical way of denying democracy? Next up, a convicted terrorist, can you believe this, is reportedly suing a pub called the Saracen's Head Inn, saying he was deeply offended by its sign. Look at the state of him. He was offended by the sign. Next up, an anti-Starmer Christmas parody song has reached #1 on Global's Top 40. But here's the point. They removed the lyrics, criticising the Prime Minister and refused to even say the band's name. By the way, it's by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers, and we'll have the creator of that song on the show a little later in the show. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. Good evening. It's just gone 7 o'clock. These are your headlines. First, to some breaking news coming to us from the US, where 5 people, including a juvenile suspect, have died after a shooting at a school in Wisconsin. US police said the shooting occurred at Abundant Life Christian School in the state capital of Madison. Authorities said children were among the dead, while police believe the suspected shooter was a student at the school. Writing on social media, police said multiple injuries have been reported, and this remains an active and ongoing investigation. The alleged Chinese spy linked to Prince Andrew has said he did nothing wrong or unlawful after he was publicly named for the first time. In a statement, Yang Tengbo added that the widespread description of me as a spy is entirely untrue. The High Court lifted a ban on naming Yang, described as a close contact of the Duke, after rejecting his bid for anonymity. The 50-year-old, who was banned from Britain on national security grounds, ran a lobbying firm with ties to Beijing, Westminster and royal circles. Yang reportedly attended the Duke's birthday party in 2020 and helped organise a UK-China business summit. Pressure to reveal his identity mounted after Reform UK's Nigel Farage vowed to name him in Parliament. Meanwhile, the Duke of York will not join the royal family for Christmas at Sandringham, according to sources. It's understood both Prince Andrew and his ex-wife, the Duchess of York, have decided to avoid the annual family gathering amid the ongoing scandal over the Duke's close links to the alleged Chinese spy. It comes after the Duke was urged to, quote, do the decent thing and maintain a low profile over the Christmas period to avoid causing further embarrassment to the King. In other news, killer nurse Lucy Letby's legal team has said they will be asking the Court of Appeal to immediately review all her convictions because an expert witness has now changed his mind on the cause of the death of 3 babies. Her new lawyer, Mark MacDonald, said Dr. Dewey Evans had told the jury Letby had injected air down a nasal gastric tube, leading to the death of the 3 babies. But he said Dr. Evans has now changed his mind. Letby is serving 15 whole-life terms in prison for the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 7 others, while working at the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2015 and 2016. Now, a snap election has been triggered in Germany after Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a vote of confidence in Parliament. The German Chancellor called today's vote, which he lost, paving the way to an early election on the 23rd of February next year. It follows the collapse of Scholz's 3-party coalition government, which left the embattled Chancellor leading a minority administration. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now let's get cracking on tonight's Farage. Now, it's fair to say that local government reorganisation may not get the juices flowing for most of us, but this one, trust me, it's a biggie. Because Angela Rayner is planning the biggest shake-up in local government in an entire generation, and district councils could be abolished and more elected mayors introduced. Now, elected mayors, of course, could also get sweeping new powers to grant planning permission for major infrastructure projects, for example. So will these changes get Britain building, or are we chucking yet more money at our bloated bureaucracy? Well, joining me now is the Reform Councillor for Kent County Council, Thomas Mallon. Thomas, welcome to the show. Thomas, pleasure to have your company. The reason I've wanted to speak to you tonight is because your party leader, Nigel Farage, has been saying that the devolution model is actually a cover story. Devolved power means actually there'll be a good chance that a good number of local elections might be cancelled in May. In fact, Jim McMahon, the government minister, said that there's a good chance that that could happen. And that, of course, would mean that those are elections that the Reform Party is expected to do well at. Do you think this is a manipulation of democracy, using devolution as a cover story for avoiding a good hounding, a good kicking at the polling for Sir Keir Starmer?
Absolutely. What we've got right at this moment in time is Orwellian double talk, and that's what's coming out of the Labour Party right now. I was elected democratically by the local people of Greenhithe and Swanscombe, and that democratic mandate gives me permission to do what they're asking. This proposal by the Labour Party would take democracy out of the hands of the local people, and it would put it in the hands of bureaucrats. It would put it in the hands of people that don't care or have any interest in local issues. And looking at some of these proposals, the wider development powers, this would give Labour permission to, pardon the pun, bulldoze planning permissions through to build more housing estates in a already overpopulated area of Dartford and Kent. And to me, that's just riding roughshod over democracy, and it's taking democracy away from the people. And that's the problem we've got at the moment.
But, Thomas, it was the Labour Party. In fact, it was Dame Harriet Harman who at the weekend said that the enemy of democracy is the Reform Party. But isn't it true to say that a bigger net deficit of democracy would be the Conservative Party? A lot of these elections are in rural areas. Conservative Party might get the boots put into them. And isn't it funny? They've been conspicuous by their silence today on this. Normally, they kick off at any opportunity about the devolution of power, because it generally means more control of towns, more control of the provinces by the Labour Party.
Yeah, I mean, the problem we have at the moment, in this county anyway, is the local building isn't going on in Tory rural areas. It's going on in built-up areas like Dartford and Kent, where on the Thames estuary, the house building around this area is one of the highest, most populated house building we've had in years. The house building around here is astronomical. It's the highest in England. So the people don't have a chance to breathe at this moment in time. But you don't see that in the rural heartlands where the Conservatives are at the moment in time. So, again, there is another problem.
Do you think that devolution is actually just a way of getting more control of local areas without giving people a say? For example, if you're a mayor, do we need mayors? Do we need this? Or should we have more stuff run from Westminster?
Well, I don't think maybe more stuff run from Westminster. I think the system we have right now with Kent County Council and local councils is a good idea, because it puts democracy in the pockets of the local people. The local people can vote, like for myself, for a 4-year period. If we don't do our jobs properly, we can be democratically de-elected and someone else would take our place. Now, if you have a mayor, they're just going to be covered in layers of bureaucracy and layers of people round about them again, that again don't have the best interests of the local people at heart. And there is the problem. I was out today and I was with local charities and local organisations in my area trying to get to the grassroots of what they need, what the help in the local area is needed. Now, would these unelected bureaucrats be willing to do that? Because they won't have a 4-year term or a 5-year term to be impressive to the local people, to stay elected, to help the local people. They've got a job for life. So what is their incentive to do well for that local community? That's the question.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. And that's the Councillor Thomas Mallon, Reform UK for Kent County Council. Thank you very much for your time. Let's continue this conversation now back in the studio. I'm joined by Gawain Towler, the former comms director for Reform UK, Brexit Party and UKIP, and also Susie Stride, a activist and former parliamentary candidate for the Labour Party. Thank you very much. Now, let's go to you first, if I could, Susie. A lot of criticism going the Labour Party's way today. This is a blatant attempt to kick democracy down the road because you won't get the result you want.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's basically utter rubbish. This is actually about better homes for people. This is about making sure that we are meeting the needs of people in local communities. This is actually about taking back control from Westminster and giving it to local communities. This is, nothing to do with some of what has just been said there. People voted for a Labour government because there's a housing crisis in this country. People want actually us to build 1.5 million homes. People want that housing. They want it for their kids, and this is one of the ways that we're going to achieve that, as well as better local transport links. This is absolutely fundamental to people's quality of life, and this is what these announcements are about today.
Well, how's that going to work when the popularity of Keir Starmer today is at a record low? Minus 37%, the least popular Prime Minister in modern history, minus 37. Tony Blair's on plus 57. That's a swing of minus 94. He's terribly unpopular and his policies aren't washing.
Yeah, I mean, look, whatever that is, that's a poll, whatever that may be, the point is we're 5 months in, not even 6 months into a new Labour government. I would say, which I know you guys won't agree with, our right-wing press don't help. 80% of our media is right-wing. People are reading that stuff, and everything...
Including the BBC, including the Guardian,
everything's
including the Mirror,
I mean, the Guardian is
including Sky News.
Guardian is no friend of the Labour Party. Murdoch, who owns Sky News, is definitely no friend of the Labour Party.
No, he doesn't. Comcast, he's sold off.
That's rubbish.
These people are definitely...
years ago.
These people are definitely no friend of the Labour Party whatsoever. The only people on our side is the Daily Mirror.
Is it a bit rich? Is it not a bit rich, though, Susie Stride? Seriously, I know it's Christmas. Is it not a bit rich to blame all of this on the right-wing press? This is feathering his own. This is a bed that Keir Starmer has to lay in himself, Gawain Towler.
The idea of... No, I don't want to think about Keir Starmer laying in any bed, but particularly not in the rural counties. What I find is very interesting, he's come up with all these policies that hammer the countryside, and now it looks like he's going to take the vote away from the countryside. I mean, I can't imagine the farmers are going to be overly chuffed that not only they're annoyed, but they don't get to vote against the blighters as well. That, I think, is quite serious, because these are the counties. Now, you're right that the Tories have been kept quiet. No surprise. The last time these councils went up for vote was at that very high tide mark of the Boris Prime Minister, when they were winning places like Hartlepool. They are likely to lose a good half of their council seats at this election. Now, so they're keeping stum. But what I find is astonishing, we were told this morning that there would be a full consultation. Now, the elections are in May. Take away the, 6 weeks? Because that's the time of the election, so before that. So that's 6 weeks, so that's 6 months, 4.5 months.
Now
and then
Christmas.
Take away Christmas, that's another month away. Are you telling me that you can have a full consultation with the bureaucratic idiocies and speak to the millions who are going to be affected in 3 months? You are talking baloney. It's absurd. There's no way they can do that. So they've already made a decision. They're going to have a consultation as some sort of democratic fig leaf on the embarrassment that is their trousers, and they are going to force this through. Now, there are positives in what is being suggested. Maybe we're going to get rid of police and crime commissioners as part of it, as mayors become, if you're going to have a mayor's become the police and crime commissioner in County X or County Y. There are some benefits here. Not everything that they're proposing is dumb. It really isn't. But I think Councillor Mallon was right on certain things. If you take away the districts, you have nobody to fight when this county... In my case, I used to live in Dorset as my home. Say in Dorchester. Dorchester doesn't give a hoot about what happens in Wimborne. And if it's all controlled there, you used to have districts to defend your interests. And they're going to be got rid of, and that's a bad thing.
I mean, look, ultimately, people do get a vote. They get a vote because we've just had a massive, general election, and people voted then, and people will get to vote again. This is not what this is about. This is about saying, look at Manchester, look at the successes there, look at them taking buses back in-house, look at, do we think the current system is working? The current system is clearly not working
Well, we're
because
talking
you
about the rural
wouldn't.
counties here,
You
not
would not
an
have.
urban mass like
There is a
Manchester.
housing crisis across this country, whether it's places like Harlow. I lived in Harlow for a very short period of time. There is a housing crisis, even when it comes down to things like potholes. These are small little things, but they're not small little things. They drive people mad. And the fact is we want people to have good local representation, and actually this is a better way of doing it. And actually they did a poll, and people love having their mayors.
I wonder if they do. In the East Midlands, where I'm from, no one cares who's the mayor. Where's the evidence that devolving power works? Birmingham City Council went bankrupt. Nottingham City Council, my home city, went bankrupt. They couldn't organise a turkey raffle. Who says that they can organise billions of pounds of budget?
Look, I think we look at what has gone on, especially, look, over the last 14 years, you look everywhere, whether it's schools, whether it's local... and it's very important to say that, because we haven't had a Labour government for 14 years. I think this is a radical way to transform the country. I think this is, again, this is about saying we're giving power back to local communities. This is taking power out of Westminster, away from people that, are making decisions and, they're out of touch.
What about if it's taking power away from people altogether because they're not allowed to blooming vote
for another year or so?
No, that is not what is going on here. This is not why these decisions are being made. This is about saying, actually, we want to build those homes. We want to make sure that we revitalise local areas. The really exciting thing, in areas like mine, what's really exciting is they're going to say to local areas, actually, it's going to be incumbent upon you to make sure the high street is revitalised, and they're going to make sure that employers are working with schools and colleges and universities. I genuinely, this typical thing of prejudging something before we actually see the outcome. I think this is going to be exciting. I think this is going to transform lives. I think we're going to see renewal in areas.
Well, you're talking about, you mentioned the 1.5 million housing, that's got to be done. But we know that 7 in 10 of those houses are going to be for migrants. So that revitalising of your local area, what you mean is when you build these new houses in your local area, decided by County Hall, not by your borough, it's going to be importing a whole bunch of migrants into those housing.
Why not? Let's talk about immigration. Do we think the Tories did a good job on immigration?
No, it's appalling, but I'm not a Tory.
I mean, it's a joke, isn't it?
I'm not going to offend.
They go on and on and on about immigration, and it went right through the roof. They were utterly incompetent on it, and we are actually doing the business on it.
I hold no candle for the Conservatives.
We have to leave it there. Gawain Towler and Susie Stride. Beautiful start to the show. Very, very impassioned. Moving on now, because up next, a senior police chief has called on Yvette Cooper to scrap non-crime hate incidents, describing them as an impediment to officers. We're discussing that right after this break.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Last orders at the bar, and I'm joined by Geordie Shore star Ricky Guanaccio. Have I said that right? Is that Italian?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Is Italian? Your parents Italian?
Is it? Pronunciation was pretty much perfect.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, look, mate, Geordie Shore, I've never watched it, mate, so I do apologise about that. But I know these reality TV shows are making big stars out of the people, making you famous, making you loads of money. Is it worth it?
For me personally, yeah. It's been a hell of a career. Been a hell of a lot of fun doing it. Ups and downs, but first and foremost, money-wise, yeah.
That's good. So people stopping in the street, you being famous, wanting the autograph and all. How'd you cope with that, Ricky?
Well, when we first started doing the show, I mean, we got our show off the back of Jersey Shore in America. We never expected the fame that we got, and, being one of the biggest reality TV shows in the UK and now the world, it's in 150-odd countries worldwide. Wow. It's pretty crazy. It's when you're living in houses. I mean, for example, Geordie Shore and Love Island's probably the same as well. When you're living in villas and you're living in houses, the arguing side sort of plays on your mind. You've got to deal with all that. It's a hard place to be. It's a pressure cooker.
You're living in one of these villas, Ricky, or one of these houses. Do you ever wake up one morning and think, "What am I doing here?"
When I first started, yes. Yeah. Now, I love it.
Yeah?
I don't mind all the, there's no emotion connecting me now with filming. It's kind of like I go in there, it's fun, or it's, it's dramatic, whatever it may be.
Have you ever worked behind a bar?
No.
No?
Yeah, for not a long period of time. My mum and dad had a...
Well, I can
definitely messed this one up.
Yeah, Atkins, actually believe that you've never worked behind
Yeah,
bars?
so my parents sacked us when I worked in the restaurant.
Well, obviously, I mean, you wouldn't get a job here with a pint like that, would you?
Do you want it?
No, mate, no.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney, standing in for the big man. Now, the chairman of the College of Policing has called for a complete and utter overhaul of the recording of non-crime hate incidents, warning that it's become an impediment to officers doing their job. Lord Herbert wants the practice scrapped, claiming that it distracts officers from doing the basics of policing. And Lord Herbert's intervention comes just a month, of course, after the Alison Pearson controversy, where the Telegraph journalist and columnist was investigated by Essex Police over an offensive tweet. Well, to discuss this further, I'm now joined by the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, Donna Jones. Donna, always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. So, some much overdue dose of festive common sense from the College of Police, and I'm assuming you agree with this.
Well, good evening, Martin. Thanks for having me on to talk about one of my very favourite subjects, non-crime hate incidents. I'd like to emphasise the non-crime part there. Look, I mean, I do welcome Nick Herbert's comments today, but what I would say is that this was a poor piece of legislation written by the previous Conservative government, and then a pretty poor bit of guidance written by the College of Policing, which actually Lord Herbert is the chairman of. So there's been two things really here that have compounded it, and actually it's the poor police officers that have been stuck in the middle of this, that have been trying to pick their way through poor legislation, poor guidance. And actually I came out 3 weeks ago when the whole incident kicked off with Alison Pearson and said non-crime, that clue is in the title. Police should not be responding to anything that is not a crime. It's as simple as that.
And Donald Jones, there were more than 13,200 of these non-crime hate incidents doled out in the previous 12 months to June 2024. I believe there's getting on for 200,000 of these on the records of people. And the absurdity of this is, for example, today, a convicted terrorist, Khalid Bakr, was offended by a pub sign, the Saracen's Head. He says he's offended by the depiction of a bearded Arab or Turk. It's Christmas. We should be smiling, but this is an absolute joke. It makes a mockery of justice, and people's feelings become a crime. And isn't this an utter and abject waste of time when people are more concerned about burglaries not being solved?
Absolutely. Pictures in pubs, school children calling each other names in the playground, being investigated and reported as as a non-hate crime hate incident. This is just ridiculous. This is Britain gone mad in 2022, 3, 4, all the years that this has been investigated, and the guidance was woeful when it was written a couple of years ago by the College of Policing. And I welcome, as I say, Nick's response today. What I would say, Martin, is you're right. We don't have enough police officers to investigate the actual crimes, the burglaries, the shoplifting, the street robberies, the sexual assaults. And actually, you know, we need to be standing up for victims of crime. My job is to stand up for victims of crime, for those that don't get the response from the police that they need. This was a really woeful piece of legislation. And as a Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner, this is something that I am not proud of that came out of the last government. And, you know, it really is time now, lock, stock and barrel, that we do have a complete review of that piece of legislation. Unfortunately, the Home Secretary appears not to be on the same page as me completely. She sees that it has caused lots of issues for the police, but she does want it to remain. Well, you know, I get on very well with her, and I will be lobbying her when I see her and have the opportunity to say, we just need to get rid of this. If someone is offensive to someone because of their race or their religion, that is an actual crime. If I go up to somebody and call them a name in the street because they are a Muslim or they're Jewish or whatever it is, I am committing a crime. However, if I make a comment about something that's not directly about you because of your religion, and I'm just calling someone a name, calling them fat or too thin or too tall or whatever it might be, that is not a hate crime. That is just me giving my opinion, and people may not like it. It's just been absurd. It's completely absurd, Martin.
I totally agree. Let's start policing the streets and not start policing the tweets. A injection of Christmas common sense. Thank you very much. That's Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, Donna Jones. Thank you very much. Now, let's continue this conversation back in the studio with my lively panel. That's the former Reform UK spokesman, Gawain Towler, and the political commentator, Susie Stride. Welcome back to both of you. Gawain, I'll start with you this time. Is this a case of the coppers passing the buck? They're blaming the politicians for giving them bad law, but they're the ones enforcing it. Surely the buck stops with the coppers. We heard there quite clearly Donna Jones saying, you know, these laws are nonsense, and various police and crime commissioners can enforce this or choose not to. Some are overly zealous, some are common sense. I'll put it to you, it's not just the bad law, it's the bad law men enforcing it.
The Conservatives brought in dreadful law. Appallingly written, appallingly designed, and then it was taken up by, I'm sad to say, a senior cadre of the police themselves and the College of Policing to make bad law worse. For Lord Herbert to ping it up the line to the ministers is not entirely fair. Both are guilty of this. In fact, the College of Policing should be closed down tomorrow. Go back to Hendon. I think it would be a far better deal. But I think what Don Jones was saying is to a certain extent true. The problem lies is, right now, I don't agree that all policemen and women are just doing their job and caught between. No, a lot of them are absolutely wedded. Even on the ground floor, they're wedded to this woke agenda. You saw the business of that the autistic girl, my lesbian ma'am or whatever, and her getting into all sorts of trouble. There was nothing wrong with that. Absolutely wrong. So the non-crime hate incidents should be just got rid of tomorrow. Okay. We want police to police crime, but... Susie, I need to introduce Susie. So the point is, this has been knocked back onto the desk of the Home Secretary. Let's face it, Yvette Cooper won't change this anytime soon. The Labour Party seem quite happy to police people's feelings.
Look, I think, number one, again, it's really important to point out, this was a Tory policy that was brought in. I think what Yvette Cooper has said is you've got to have the right balance. You know, you've got to have the right balance where, you know, we had a horrific attack going back 2 years ago, which saw a massive rise in anti-Semitism in this country and Islamophobia. What you cannot have is people getting away with that kind of behaviour. And I think it is absolutely right.
But those laws already exist. They already do. We don't need non-crime.
So what Yvette Cooper is saying is this will only be used when it is absolutely necessary. And what will not happen, which is very important, is number one, that you've got to have that balance when it comes to freedom of speech, but also what you cannot have, and this is the big thing for me, because I come from a working class background, I come from an area where I've seen a lot of high crime, and what you cannot have is police not being able to do their jobs, not doing the basics, and I think this is where people's anger rightfully comes from. Yep. But at the same time, and I'm going to throw it out there, and I don't care if it annoys a whole lot of people, you know, we've got that because we had Tories for 14 years, and I'm happy to say it, because they made cuts to the police, they made cuts to youth services, and they actually decimated, and crime went up under them.
Well, 3,000 coppers are going to be axed, apparently, according to the Metropolitan Police and the Labour Party. I digress. Thank you very much, Susie and Gawain. Now, moving on, because during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we're hearing from church ministers across the country, and each and every day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season. Here's today's.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 16.
Hi, I'm Chris Tufnell. I'm the vicar of Uterbridge Parish Church near Sheffield. Chaos or calm? Which word better describes your experience of Christmas? The Christmas cards give us pictures of idyllic calm, don't they? Robins on snow-covered postboxes, Mary and Joseph having a quiet night in. But that's not what Christmas feels like for many of us, and in reality, I'm sure it's not what that first Christmas felt like either. After all, Mary went through childbirth in a stable, and I'm pretty sure it won't have been calm like on the Christmas cards. But it does say in the Bible that after the shepherds had gone, Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. She had good reason to ponder these things. After all, they were happening to her. But I think that we have good reason to ponder these things as well. You know, I think it's hard to deny that Jesus has influenced this world more than anyone else who's ever lived. That's a big claim, I know, but I think it's true. And so might you, this Christmas, like Mary, find some calm amid the chaos to ponder this man who has changed our world forever. Happy Christmas.
Wonderful stuff there, enjoyed by Susie and Gawain and myself. You can see all of our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by going to gbnews.com/Advent. Merry Christmas. Now up next, Kevin Badenoch warns that the family farm tax will be devastating to family farmers. Well, if it's so devastating, well, why she mentioned it at PMQs last week? The 500 tractors outside totally ignored. That's next.
Good evening. Here's your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. Whilst it is going to stay mild for many of us as we go into tomorrow, there will be some wet and windy weather to come. That's because there is currently a system waiting out in the Atlantic, but ahead of this, we do currently have a front that's been lingering across some parts of northern Scotland and has already brought a fair amount of rain. That rain is going to ease as we go through tonight and into tomorrow morning. Otherwise, across other parts of the country, largely dry. Quite a bit of cloud coming in from the west, but some clear skies towards eastern parts in particular. And that cloud will do two things. Could bring some hill fog to parts of the south, and also it means our temperatures aren't going to drop. So it is going to be a mild and blustery start to the day for some of us tomorrow. As we go through tomorrow morning, then yes, quite a dry start across many parts of central southern England and Wales. A few spots of rain where the clouds thick enough, and like I said, could be a bit murky. Some hill fog to watch out for too. Further north across Northern Ireland and many parts of Scotland, outbreaks of rain already pushing their way through as we go through tomorrow morning. None of it looks particularly heavy at this point, but the rain is going to become a bit more persistent, a bit heavier as we go through the day. So we could see some spray on the roads and other travel disruption is possible. As well as the rain coming through, the winds will be strengthening as we go through the day. Risk of gales around coastal parts and towards the northwest. All the time towards the southeast, staying drier and some glimmers of sunshine as well. Temperatures above average for the time of year, most places getting into double figures, so feeling pretty mild. That rain eventually pushes through overnight into Wednesday, and then Wednesday we have a bit of a cloudy, at times damp story across much of England and Wales. A bit brighter for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but plenty of blustery showers pushing their way through. Some further wet weather to come at times as we go through Thursday and Friday, but also some sunshine. Notice, however, our temperatures are going to markedly drop. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney, covering for the big man. Now, today, hundreds of angry farmers and business owners were addressed by Kemi Badenoch and the Lib Dem leader Ed Davey in London at the London Palladium in response to Labour's inheritance tax and business tax raids. Now, the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, has slammed Labour's family farm tax raid, claiming it'll be devastating for rural communities. Now, this comes, of course, on the same day the farmers have held yet another mass rally to protest the so-called family farm tax. And let's take a listen to what Kemi Badenoch had to say a little earlier.
Everyone knows how hard it is to keep a farm going, and it is often only the people within the family who understand how the business works and how to keep it surviving. And so that's why we're really disappointed that Labour is cutting that 100% relief for assets over $1 million. We know that scrapping BPR is going to be incredibly damaging, and that is why today I can tell you that we will reverse this damaging tax grab at the earliest opportunity.
Well, Ms Badenoch has not escaped criticism, however, with some campaigners asking why she didn't question the Prime Minister last week on the family farm tax. During last week's Prime Minister's question time, I've got to say, I was one of those critics. I'm joined now in the studio by Clive Bailey, who's the farmer and the owner of the Farming Forum, as well as, of course, my fantastic panel, Susie Stride and Gawain Towler. Clive, let's start with you. You were sat in that precise seat last Wednesday after PMQs. I couldn't believe that Kemi Badenoch couldn't even hear you. 500 tracks outside, honking your horns for Billy O. People inside could hear it. She led instead on immigration. You said to me after that you're astonished, and farmers were talking about strikes, about food shortages. Did you hear enough today from the leader of the opposition for you and the farming community to put down your pitchforks?
Well, like you say, I mean, you couldn't have been in London last Wednesday and not seen all those tractors, the noise they were making. You know, they came in peace, had that carnival atmosphere. So it was a great day, good event, no disruption caused. Queensbury rules, as you said before, you know, everyone's playing by them still. So not causing problems, but making it clear that, you know, this is not acceptable. The numbers that they've got are wrong, which we've consistently said from the front. I mean, I think everybody, you know, even a lot of advisors, even DEFRA, everyone seems to accept that these numbers are wrong now, apart from the actual politicians. So that seems established. But yeah, it was really disappointing that she didn't use that opportunity when they would have heard those horns while they were in Westminster in question time. It's really disappointing that she didn't use the opportunity to bring this up again, yeah.
So today, at the first available opportunity, they'll reverse this. That's 5 years away, mate. I mean, did anybody from the Labour Party turn up to talk to you today?
No, they were invited, though, but, yeah, no surprises that no one from the Labour Party came. We're not trying to be political around this in terms of any allegiance to any particular political party, but yeah, nobody came from the Labour Party. They don't seem to be talking. They don't seem to want to do anything about this. They don't seem to understand the size of the problem and just how many of these family farms it's affecting. It's not catching the large institutional investors or those lifestyle people that are using APR and BPR to shelter inheritance tax. It's catching the genuine family farms that just can't afford this. It's an unaffordable tax on to pay.
Clive, we keep talking, don't we, about there being some kind of breakaway movement. Is the National Farmers Union playing Queensbury rules, as we keep saying, too much? And every time you come in, you say this is escalating step by step by step. I get the feeling that you boys aren't putting down tools anytime soon.
No, farmers don't give up, do they? I mean, we said from the outset, you know, all of us and my friends that organised that original rally, we said we would keep it clean, polite and friendly, you know, to Christmas. We don't want to ruin anyone's Christmas. But things are clearly going to keep escalating unless there gets some grown-up, proper conversation about this. You know, we've got to find a resolution. There are people, you know, the older generation are going into Christmas this year desperate, you know, sitting around their Christmas tables wondering if they are better off choking on a sprout and popping off right there. You know, that's not a great place for them to be. They're genuinely, that's the kind of level of despair it's creating within that older generation now, yeah.
OK, Clive Bay, stick with us. I want to get my panel in. Susie Stride and Gawain Towler. Susie, I've got to come to you first. I mean, you know, Clive is a third-generation farmer. I've had his son sat there before, 12-year-old Henry. Henry put a question to the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, on behalf of GB News. We put it to him. He wants to carry on the legacy. He's fearful he won't be allowed to, and that's because the Labour Party have chosen to go after the farmers. Why? Why did you go after the farmers? And why do you go after the pensioners, for that matter? But do you think this is the battle that Sir Keir Starmer will live to regret?
I mean, first of all, look, all respect to Clive, you know, well done for being a farmer. It's not an easy job, and I haven't got to meet your son, but, you know, look, this is where I'm at on this. Look, we're for farmers. We care about farmers. And I think what this is doing, this is, you know, saying that actually it's only 500 farms that are going to be affected by this. The vast majority of farms aren't going to be affected. And actually, if there's with the combined income, it's actually £3 million. So you can have £3 million before you are going to get taxed. For everyone on this panel not liking me at this very moment.
No, I think we've heard it over and over, and it's been proven to be wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Even the advisors, Dan Needle, who advised on the original, even he has recanted and changed this and said, no, actually, I got this wrong. It's going to get the wrong people. It's not good policy.
BBC Verified still on it, though.
BBC, yeah, even BBC Verified. They've been editing their website and changing BBC Verify. Even they've changed their mind on this.
On a serious point, the farmers keep telling me that they would happily sit down and negotiate. Go after the pretend farmers. Go after the massive landowners. But why get the smallholders in the blunderbuss, in the crossfire?
Look, I think there's a few things here. First of all, and again, you guys don't have to agree with me, and that's OK, because that's politics, isn't it? And that's democracy. But the fact is we inherited a black hole, and there was a black hole, sorry. You can say whatever you want, there was a black hole. And there were lots of things that actually the Labour government didn't know when they came into power. Yes, they did know they were going to come into a difficult economic situation, but not to the extent with which they came, that they now have been faced. And ultimately, people want hospitals, people want to be able to get a GP appointment, people want their schools to be rebuilt, we want your son to be able to have a good education. These are important things. So if we want to meet those needs,
farmers are people too. They want those same things, yeah? I'm sick of
do.
potholes. I'm sick of the lack of policing for all crime, right? But, you know, here's a bit of farming advice. If you're digging a hole that you don't want, it's best to stop digging, yeah?
Even
if you've got a hole that you don't
so-called
want.
22 million black hole.
So, look, let's agree on something, that, you know, if we need more tax for better public services we all want, yeah, you need to raise more revenue to do that. That's no one's arguing with that. Farmers aren't, you know, this narrative that farmers are tax dodgers, or today, the wider picture today wasn't just about farmers, it was about building an army for the next step. So we're bringing wider business into this, because BPR isn't just, you know, farmers aren't special in this respect. BPR affects all multi-generational family businesses. This is like hundreds of thousands of businesses across this country. The amount of people, everyone today was saying, look, there's no point in me investing in my business anymore. I might as well sell it today, yeah? OK, and then they'll pay their taxes. They'll pay capital gains tax if they did that, yeah? But they won't be employing people, paying those increased national insurance contributions. They won't be paying the VAT. They won't be paying the corporation tax. So you'll take this tax once, but then you'll lose the business. That then will lose you the tax to get the growth and fill the hole for you.
OK, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much. That's Clive Bailey, farmer and owner of the Farming Forum, and, of course, Susie Stride, Gawain Tower. Sorry, Gawain, didn't get a chance there, but we've got plenty more time in the show, because a convicted terrorist is reportedly suing a pub called the Saracen's Head Inn, saying he's deeply offended by its pub sign. You couldn't make it up. It's been reported in The Sun that 6-year-old Khalid Bakr claims the depiction of a bearded Arab incites violence. Despite him previously being jailed for preparing jihadi propaganda. He also claimed it's racist and wants more than £1,800 from the landlord of the historic boozer in Amersham, and plans to take on 30 more boozers with the same name if successful. But the publican Robbie Hayes called it a complete joke, adding that the pub has been called the Saracen's Head for over 500 years. A quick chat about this with our panel. And again, I'm still with Reform spokesman Gawain Towler and political commentator Susie Stride. Let's start with you, Gawain. Didn't get a word in last time. This is absolute nonsense. A jihadist, a convicted terrorist, suing a landlord over a sign he doesn't like.
It's so rich. It's richer than the richest Christmas pudding. It's preposterous. I mean, the fellow says that a bearded Saracen, and I didn't know the word Saracen was on the prescribed list, but clearly it is, but a bearded Saracen incites violence. You just showed a picture of what? A bearded bloke with an orange beard? Does that incite violence? No.
Well, he tried to.
I am not incited to violence by a picture of the fellow making the complaint. And there he is, bearded. Well, I don't know what a Saracen is. A Middle Eastern, North African, I don't know. And it is absurd. There was also a claim in his that it is a headless. The fellow has had a head chopped off. Well, actually, take a look at the picture. You just showed it. Yeah. He's not chopped off. He's talking bunk. He's talking utter bunk, and he's trying to take money off a hard-working businessman again. And another 30 eternity to come. I mean, the fella can take a running jump and get in the sea.
And Susie Stride, the most offensive thing about this, which isn't being talked about, is that preposterous ginger beard.
I don't have much to comment on this. I think, look, sometimes there are things that are offensive to certain communities, and I think it's absolutely fair enough, you know, for those things to go. I can't comment on this because I just don't know enough about it, but I think there is always
what do you need to know
but
about
there's always no. What I'm going to say is there's always a balance, isn't there?
What balance is here? Some terrorist demands the change of British culture.
There's always what I'm saying is there's always a balance, i.e. there are certain things that are offensive, especially maybe things linked to the slave trade. And then there are things which may be part of our history and tradition, and actually people are trying to make a mountain out of a molehill.
No,
and this may well be one of those things. So, yeah.
OK, we have to move on. It's enough to drive to drink. Of course, not Khalid and Baka. That would be A.H. Clive. Thank you very much, Susie Gawain. And, of course, Clive Bailey. And thank you to my panel. And coming up next...
We'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
Well, they are topping the charts, but are they being censored? Gentlemen, ladies, we've got a show going on. They're topping the charts, but are they being censored? Because just like the Sex Pistols, I'll be joined by the mastermind of Freezing This Christmas, and that's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As Strictly Come Dancing approaches its iconic Blackpool episode, marking halfway through the competition, visually impaired dancers across the country have spoken out about how groundbreaking the casting of Chris McCausland is, who suffers from, if I hope I'm saying this correctly, retinitis pigmentosa, and they have found him particularly inspiring. We've been talking, Sean, about how the casting of Strictly has been inspiring to so many people, but I imagine there'll be lots of people who are watching this at home finding your story of resilience really inspiring, because you've obviously really been through it. Is dancing something that has sort of, you know, helped keep you going through all of those troubles? And what does it mean to you to see casting like this on a show like Strictly Come Dancing?
Like I say, all the things I went through. So those 9 years when I wasn't dancing, you know, I was still dancing in my head and just banging on to other people. Very much not just people with sight loss. You know, I've been a big advocate for people with social isolation. So many people on their own now, social anxiety, especially since COVID. And I just want people to get out. The stuff that I'm doing and all the stuff Chris is obviously doing, it will inspire others. Again, like I say, just not people just with sight loss. I had so many people come up to me in the early days, guys, and now that say, you know what, Shawnee, I've seen you do it, so I'm just going to do it. But you just got to get over yourself, because if you bother to do the maths, you know, because all it is maths and walking. Yeah. You know, that's all it is.
Maths and walking actually sounds quite difficult.
Sean, thank you.
Oh, come on, mate. Can you shout? Can you walk? Crack on.
Sean, you're an inspiration. Thank you, mate, for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. You're a star, and so glad.
Just before I go, I'm just going to say this is Kev. Here's Kev.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now, as you know, we've been doing our little bit to promote the smash hit single Freezing This Christmas here on GB News, and I'm delighted to say that yesterday they reached #1 in Global's Top 40.
We've got a brand new number one. Freezing This Christmas is straight to the top of the UK chart. It's a charity single. It covers a 1975 classic from Mud, you know, Lonely This Christmas. Yeah, they've reworked it and it's raising money for the elderly this winter. Charity single season is on and your number one sounds like this.
The EE official Big Top 40.
Number
one. It'll be freezing this Christmas without fuel at home.
But here's the problem. They cut the line out about Keir Starmer and they went out of their way not to mention the band's name or why this single indeed is raising money for charity this year. But look, a number one is a number one. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the mastermind behind this megalith, this mega hit now. It's Chris Middleton. Chris, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Chris, when I had you on my show a couple of weeks ago, this really launched off it, turbocharged. You got to number one first in the iTunes charts. Now you're number one in the global charts. Of course, the big day is this Friday. That's when the number one gets decided for Christmas. But they censored you. They didn't mention the name of your group. They didn't mention the name of the song. Tell us more. Tell us about how people can help you get to number one.
Well, yes, it's a bit strange, really. I mean, obviously, we never really thought in the first place we would even get into the charts. That wasn't my intention. But now that it's got there, once it got all this support, I did sort of wonder, you know, what if it gets in the chart and the radio stations have to play it? How will they handle it? And as we saw yesterday, they tried to avoid it as much as they could. Fair enough, they still played it. They played a part of it. They said the name of the song, but they had to make about 3 edits to cut that clip that they did play. They cut out the line about Keir Starmer being warm this Christmas, which obviously the point of that was to highlight the fact is, you know, MPs have their heating allowance and all of this kind of stuff, while pensioners out there are not going to be getting their £200 or £300. So fair enough, they did play it, but I think a lot of people are a bit angry with them for not playing the full song and having the guts to play the full song.
And they've also edited out the name of the artist. Of course, Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. You can imagine why that might make them choke on their plum duff at Global Records. But nevertheless, you know, people can get involved. How can they give you a big push to get to number one? Tell people how to get involved and help you.
Well, the best thing you can do if you want to support the song, support our pensioners, and also send a message to the government that we disagree with this policy, you need to go out there, you need to buy the song. It's Freezing This Christmas. You can buy it on iTunes and you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on both if you wish. You can stream it on all the platforms. All of the money will go to charity to help the elderly. And basically, we have until midnight on Thursday night to get as many sales, as many streams as we can. We're currently 67th in the overall official chart, which includes downloads, streams, and physical sales. I think we can get much, much higher than that. Whether we can get to number one when the media seems to want to avoid us, apart from your good selves and a few others, I'm not sure, but I think we can have a bloody good go at it.
Well done, Chris Middleton. Keep the big push going, Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. Freezing This Christmas. Let's see if it makes them choke on their turkey at number 10. Quick reaction now from my panel, former Reform UK spokesman Gawain Towler and political commentator Susie Stride. Susie, come in to you first. So Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers, prompted on by, of course, that cruel winter fuel allowance tax. Will it be a blue Christmas, a miserable Christmas for Keir Starmer if this tops the charts?
I mean, first of all, well done to anyone that wants to use their musical talent or initiative to raise money for people, because I think that's always positive. So, yeah, so I think that's good. I wonder whether look, I don't know why they made this decision to not, like, do all the naming and whatnot. Maybe they think, oh, it's better to keep the politics of it all out of Christmas. So maybe that's why they did that. I don't think it's going to be... Look, I think Keir Starmer, I think there is more goodwill in this country for Keir Starmer than all you lot go on about.
You must believe in Santa Claus.
I don't...
Now, can I get you in? Jacob Rees-Mogg, a quick minute State of the Nation, of course, is up next. What's on your menu?
Well, another thing about privacy, not telling people the names. Why did we not know the name of the alleged Chinese spy? Why didn't we not know the name of the judge involved in the case with Sarah Sharif? What's going on? Justice is being closed down. We don't understand the level of threat of China because so much going on secretly. And this is really undermining justice, the rule of law, and indeed the security of the nation. And Tom Tugendhat is joining me to discuss this, who obviously has so much experience in this field.
And do you think there's been a complete sense of humour failure at number 10 about Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers?
Well, no, because they don't have any sense of humour to start with, so you can't fail if you haven't got one, can you?
Super stuff. Thank you very much. And don't forget, that's next, State of the Nation with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Thank you very much to my panel, Gawain Towler, spokesperson for Reform UK, Susie, excellent company as ever. Susie Stride there, Labour activist and former parliamentary candidate. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow. In fact, I'm not. I'm going to my daughter's nativity play. So I think it may be her last. Trying to cancel Christmas, but enough of that. Thanks for joining me tonight. First, though, here's your weather, and here's Alex Burkill.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. Whilst it is going to stay mild for many of us as we go into tomorrow, there will be some wet and windy weather to come. That's because there is currently a system waiting out in the Atlantic, but ahead of this, we do currently have a front that's been lingering across some parts of northern Scotland and has already brought a fair amount of rain. That rain is going to ease as we go through tonight and into tomorrow morning. Otherwise, across other parts of the country, largely dry. Quite a bit of cloud coming in from the west, but some clear skies towards eastern parts in particular. And that cloud will do two things. Could bring some hill fog to parts of the south, and also it means our temperatures aren't going to drop. So it is going to be a mild and blustery start to the day for some of us tomorrow. As we go through tomorrow morning, then yes, quite a dry start across many parts of central southern England and Wales. A few spots of rain where the clouds thick enough, and like I said, could be a bit murky